On my 60th birthday, my son sent me a text message. Just one. 12 words that cut deeper than any knife. Dad, we need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all. His wife even tapped a little heart reaction as if celebrating my exile. They thought that text ended the conversation. What they didn't know was that it ended their access to a $32 million family fortune. I'm Peter Aldridge. For 6 decades, I've lived by one principle my father drilled into me. Kindness is strength, but never confuse it with weakness. My son mistook my patience for fragility. He forgot who built the empire he's standing on. That birthday should have been lonely. Instead, it became the beginning of a reckoning I had quietly prepared for years. The silence was the first thing you would have noticed. In a house like mine, a sprawling stone estate set deep into the rolling hills of Connecticut, silence wasn't unusual. But this time it wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall seemed louder than ever. Each second that passed was another reminder. Not a single call, not a single knock on the door, not a single voice saying, "Happy birthday, Dad." Just one text message. I sat in my leather chair, the same one my late wife, Anna, always teased me about. She said it made me look like an old general surveying his troops. But there were no troops left. No laughter echoing in the halls. No smell of her cinnamon rolls sneaking out of the kitchen. Just me, and a silence that gnawed at my bones. On the table beside me was a photograph, Anna, smiling in the sunlight, holding our son Michael when he was barely 2. She used to say, "Peter, whatever happens, remember, family is everything." But Michael had forgotten. Or maybe he had never believed it in the first place. I stared at the glowing screen of my phone again. His words burned like acid. "Dad, we need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all." It wasn't just the coldness of it. It was the finality. Like I was a piece of junk mail they could unsubscribe from with one click. And the like from his wife, Lauren, was worse. A tiny digital thumbs up to my erasure. I remembered the night I met her. She was all charm, compliments, and politeness. But there had always been a sharpness behind her smile, a calculation in her eyes. I gave her the benefit of the doubt for Michael's sake. I ignored the way she slowly pulled him further from me after Anna died. The way she rolled her eyes when I offered advice. The way she once whispered to Michael, thinking I couldn't hear. "Why does your dad always act like he's still in charge?" Maybe she thought money made me controllable. Maybe Michael thought love was a weakness. Either way, they thought they'd won. They didn't know I'd been keeping quiet about something for decades. I wasn't just Michael's father. I was the architect of everything he stood on. $32 million. That's what Aldridge Industries was worth on paper the last time we evaluated it. But to me, it was more than numbers. It was nights sleeping in my office chair when payroll was due. It was the broken hands and scarred knuckles from the years. I spent building the business out of nothing. When Michael was a teenager, he mocked me for being gone too often. He never saw that every late night was a brick in the foundation of his future. When he went off to college, he asked for tuition. I paid it. When he wanted to find himself by traveling through Europe, I funded it. When he came back broke, asking for seed money to start his own business, I gave him the check. Every time I told myself this is what Anna would want. Help him, protect him, believe in him. But belief, like money, has a limit. And that text was the overdraft notice. Here's what Michael didn't know. When Anna was still alive, we rewrote the estate plan. We created trusts. We set up contingencies. We left nothing to chance. Because Anna, bless her, always saw more clearly than me. She said, "Peter, love your son, but don't blind yourself to who he is becoming. Protect him, even if it's from himself." So buried in those legal papers was a clause, a simple, brilliant clause. One that transferred control of every asset, not just the money, but the properties, the investments, the shares, to trustees the moment Michael cut off contact with me in writing. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. For him, for the legacy, for Anna's memory. And with that one text, he triggered it. But here's the truth. I hadn't decided yet whether to enforce it. I could have ignored it. I could have chalked it up to frustration, to his wife's influence, to the stress of modern life. But as I sat there, scrolling back through years of unanswered messages, forgotten birthdays, polite but distant replies, the weight of his words crushed something in me. That night I picked up the phone, not to call him, to call my lawyer. By morning, the papers were in motion. Michael had no idea. 2 weeks later, he came knocking. I'll never forget it. His car, a brand new German SUV I had quietly financed. rolled up the driveway like he owned the place. He walked in without ringing the bell, Lauren strutting behind him with her designer handbag dangling off her arm. "Dad," he said with that patronizing tone. "We should talk." I just smiled. A calm, slow smile, the same one I used in boardrooms when I knew I had already won. Lauren looked around the house like it disgusted her. "We're thinking of putting this place on the market," she said casually. "It's too outdated." Michael smirked like she'd just said something clever. That was the moment I realized. They thought it was already theirs. My home, my life's work, my fortune. They thought I was just a signature waiting to happen. And that's when I knew the reckoning wasn't just necessary. It was overdue. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded, and let them talk. Every word they said was another nail in their own coffin. Finally, Michael said it. "Dad, maybe it's time you stepped aside. You've done enough. Let us handle things now," Lauren added softly, almost mockingly. "It would be easier for everyone." I looked them both in the eyes. The son I had raised, the woman who thought she had claimed him. And with the calmest voice they'd ever heard from me, I said, "Michael, Lauren, the two of you made one mistake. You thought cutting me off meant freedom, but it didn't free you. It freed me." Their smiles faltered, because in that instant they realized something they hadn't considered. The empire they thought was waiting for them was already gone, and they were about to learn what it really means when kindness stops being mistaken for weakness. The silence that followed my words was deafening. Michael's mouth opened slightly, as if he wanted to challenge me, but no words came out. Lauren, on the other hand, narrowed her eyes, scanning my face like she could find the truth written in the lines of my skin. "You're bluffing," she said finally, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You wouldn't do that to your own son." I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under my weight, and steepled my fingers. I had learned long ago that silence is the deadliest weapon in any confrontation. People rush to fill it, and in their rush, they reveal everything. Michael spoke first. His voice cracked at the edges. "Dad, what do you mean by that?" I didn't answer. I just let the question hang in the air like smoke. Lauren scoffed, waving her manicured hand. "Peter, please. We know how this works. The house, the accounts, the company, it all passes down eventually. Michael is your only child. There's no one else. It's simple." Simple. That word burned through me like acid. Nothing about my life had ever been simple. Every brick in this house, every dollar in those accounts, every sleepless night spent saving. Aldridge Industries from collapse, none of it was simple. And now this woman, who had never worked a day to build it, stood in my living room telling me it was all simple. I finally spoke. "You think I'm bluffing?" Lauren's lips curled into a smirk. "Of course you are. Fathers don't cut off their sons." I looked at Michael, not at her, him, my son. "Do you believe that too, Michael? Do you think your father is weak?" His eyes flickered. He looked at her, then at me, then down at the floor. And in that moment I saw it. The boy I raised was gone. In his place was a man molded by greed, by entitlement, by someone else's influence. "Yes," he whispered finally. "You won't do it." That was all I needed. I reached into the drawer of the side table and pulled out a single thick envelope. The weight of it seemed to shift the air in the room. "This," I said, placing it on the coffee table between us, "is why I'm not bluffing." Lauren frowned. Michael hesitated, then snatched it up. His hands trembled slightly as he tore it open. His eyes darted across the pages, confusion spreading like a storm. What is this?" he stammered. "The trust," I said calmly. "The one your mother and I created before she passed. The one you triggered with your text." Lauren leaned over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she skimmed the lines. "Irrevocable. Trustees, conditions." She looked up sharply. This can't be legal." "It's very legal," I said. "Your mother made sure of it." Anna always thought ahead. "She warned me this day might come." Michael's face turned pale. "Dad, no, you can't." I leaned forward now, my voice low, steady, the way it always was in negotiations, when I wanted the other side to understand. There was no room left for compromise. I already did. As their faces drained of color, my mind drifted back to the day Anna and I sat in the lawyer's office. She had been the one to push for it. "Peter," she said gently, her hand over mine, "Michael has a good heart, but he's vulnerable. If the wrong people get to him, if he ever forgets what family means, we need to protect him even from himself." I resisted at first. The idea of tying my son's future to a legal clause felt cold. But Anna was never wrong. She saw the world more clearly than anyone, so we wrote it in. One sentence buried in 30 pages of legal language. If Michael ever cut off contact with me in writing, if he ever severed the bond of family so decisively, it would trigger the transfer of everything into an independent trust controlled by people I trusted, not him. That was 20 years ago. And now here we were. Michael slammed the papers down. "You had no right," he shouted. Lauren touched his arm, trying to calm him, but her own face was twisted with fury. "No right?" I said quietly. "It was my right. It was Anna's right. We built this, not you. You only knew the comfort it gave you." Michael's fists clenched. "I'm your son." I stood now, rising slowly, towering over him, though I didn't raise my voice. And a son honors his father. A son doesn't exile him on his 60th birthday with a text message. The words hung there, heavy, final. That was when Lauren snapped. "You're a bitter old man." She spat, her voice rising into a shrill scream. "Sitting in this dusty museum of a house, clinging to power, pretending you're still relevant. Michael deserves everything you have, and you can't stand it. You can't stand the thought of letting go. That's what this is." Michael said nothing. His silence was worse than her words. I looked at him, really looked, and felt something inside me harden. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a phase. This was who they were now. I took a slow breath, then said, "Get out." Lauren blinked. "What?" "Get out." Michael's mouth opened like he wanted to protest. But I cut him off with a glare he hadn't seen since he was a boy. The same glare I used the day he tried to steal money from Anna's purse. The same glare that stopped him in his tracks then. Except now, it didn't bring shame. It brought anger. They left, stormed out, slamming the door so hard the grandfather clock rattled in its case. Tires screeched down the driveway. And once again silence filled the house. But this time it wasn't suffocating. This time it was powerful. I poured myself a glass of scotch and sat back in my chair. The papers still lay on the table, the ink of their signatures binding and permanent. Michael thought he could erase me with 12 words. But he had only erased himself. As I sipped the drink, the phone on the table buzzed. A message lit up the screen. Not from Michael, not from Lauren, from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Someone who knew the truth about Anna's final request. Someone who could change everything. I stared at the name glowing on the screen. And for the first time in years, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. The phone buzzed again. The name glowing on the screen was one I hadn't seen in almost 15 years. Eleanor Hart. My breath caught. Eleanor had been Anna's closest friend, her confidant, her shadow through every season of our lives. After Anna's funeral, Eleanor disappeared, moving to Europe and cutting off contact entirely. I assumed grief had swallowed her whole, just as it had nearly consumed me. Why was she reaching out now? The message was short. Just 4 words. "We need to talk." I stared at it, the ice in my scotch melting into amber water. My mind churned. Why now, after all this silence? Why tonight, of all nights? On the very evening my son had severed the bond of blood? For a moment I considered ignoring it. But something deeper, a whisper of Anna's voice in my heart, told me not to. I typed back when and where. Her reply came instantly, as though she'd been waiting all along. "Tomorrow, noon, the conservatory." The following day the sky was heavy with storm clouds, the kind that gather like bruises across the horizon. I drove into town, past the familiar streets that felt emptier without Anna beside me. The conservatory was an old glass house on the edge of the botanical gardens, filled with exotic plants Anna loved. She and Eleanor had spent countless afternoons there, wandering among orchids and ferns, laughing like schoolgirls. When I stepped inside, the air was thick with humidity and the scent of jasmine. And there she was, Eleanor, older now, her hair streaked with silver, but her posture still regal, her eyes sharp as ever. "Peter," she said softly. "Eleanor." We stood for a moment, the years stretching and collapsing all at once. Finally, she gestured for me to sit on a bench shaded by towering palms. "You look exactly the same," she said. "I feel older," I replied. Her smile faded. "I suppose you got the message." I nodded. "Michael, yes." "No," she said, her voice trembling. "Not that message. The other one." I frowned. "What other one?" Eleanor reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Yellowed, edges frayed. My heart clenched as she handed it to me. Anna's handwriting stared back at me, flowing and graceful. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Peter, if you're reading this, then the day I feared has come. Michael is in danger, and not from strangers, but from those closest to him. Protect him even if he turns against you. The truth will surface one day. Trust Eleanor. I looked up, my voice barely a whisper. What does this mean? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. It means Anna knew. She knew Lauren was a threat long before you did. She suspected darker things. Darker things, I asked. Eleanor nodded. Money wasn't enough for her. Lauren's ambition runs deeper. Anna discovered something she never told you. She came to me instead. She believed Lauren would not only destroy Michael, but... She hesitated. But possibly you. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. She gave me that letter, Eleanor continued, with instructions to deliver it only when the time was right. I stayed away because I knew Lauren's type. Calculating, suspicious. If she thought I was close, she would have silenced me too. I gripped the bench, my knuckles white. So all this time, Anna knew my own son would be weaponized against me? Not your son, Eleanor corrected gently. Always her. Michael is blind, but he's not malicious, not yet. But if you don't intervene now, Peter, he will be lost forever. Lightning flashed through the glass ceiling, illuminating Eleanor's face in stark relief. My mind spun. The trust, the betrayal, Anna's foresight, all of it was connected. And now this. What do you want me to do? I asked. Eleanor's expression hardened. You must cut them off completely. Not just financially, emotionally, legally, every tie. That trust Anna created. It wasn't just protection for the fortune. It was a weapon. And now it's time to use it. I shook my head. But Michael is my son. And Lauren is his poison, she said firmly. You can't save him if you let her keep her claws in him. Anna understood this. That's why she made me promise. She knew you might hesitate. She knew your love would blind you. The storm outside cracked with thunder, rattling the glass. I felt like the world itself was warning me. As I left the conservatory, Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. Protect him, even if he turns against you. I drove back to the estate, my headlights cutting through sheets of rain. When I pulled into the driveway, the sight that greeted me stopped my heart. Michael's car was there. Lauren's too. They were back. And through the window, I could see them inside my house, my sanctuary, rifling through my desk drawers. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to take what they thought was theirs. And for the first time in my life, I realized I might have to fight my own son. The rain hammered against the roof of the estate, a drumbeat of chaos echoing through the night. My wipers had struggled against the storm on the way home. But now I sat in the car, engine idling, lights dimmed, staring at a scene that turned my veins cold. Through the wide bay window of my study, I could see them. Michael, my son, my blood, standing in the very room I had built as the heart of my sanctuary, and beside him, like a shadow wrapped in silk, was Lauren. Michael's head was bent low, his hands shaking slightly as he pulled open drawer after drawer of my desk. Lauren, in contrast, was composed, deliberate. Her hair gleamed under the chandelier. Her lips curled in a thin smile as she rifled through a stack of documents, tossing them aside with the cold efficiency of a predator, the image of my son and his wife tearing apart. My home was like a blade pressing into my chest. I could not breathe. For a moment, I almost opened the car door, ready to storm in and demand an explanation. But then I remembered Eleanor's words. Anna knew. Protect him, even if he turns against you. I killed the engine, letting the silence swallow me. My mind, sharpened by decades of business wars and betrayals, snapped into clarity. Emotion had to step aside. This wasn't just a family crisis anymore. It was a battle. I stepped out into the storm, rain soaking through my coat instantly. Moving along the hedge, I stayed in the shadows until I reached the side door. I had designed this estate to be impenetrable to outsiders, but to me, every hidden key and passage was second nature. I slipped inside quietly, the storm muffling any sound I might have made. The scent of mahogany and old books greeted me, but it felt different now, violated. My sanctuary was no longer safe. From down the hall, I heard voices. Check the bottom drawer, Lauren whispered. He always hides important papers. There, wills, trusts, titles. He's old-fashioned. Michael hesitated. Lauren, I don't feel right about this. Don't be weak, she snapped, her voice sharp enough to slice the air. Do you want to be a man who inherits nothing? Or do you want to stand on your own, finally free of his control? Her words weren't just poison. They were venom designed to corrode every memory of love I had given my son. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. A moment later, I heard the metallic clang of the bottom drawer sliding open. Michael let out a shaky breath. "It's here," he said. "The documents. The trust." I closed my eyes. That drawer did indeed contain critical files, but not the ones they thought. The true documents were hidden in a safe behind a false wall, known only to me and Eleanor. What Michael and Lauren were holding now were decoys, deliberately placed for this very moment.
I had prepared for betrayal long before tonight.
Not because I didn't love my son, but because I knew the world was cruel. And sometimes that cruelty lived inside your own house. I took a deep breath and stepped into the room. The chandelier light fell across me as I entered, dripping rain onto the polished wood floor. Both of them froze. Michael's face went pale, the color draining from him as though he'd seen a ghost. "Dad," he stammered. Lauren, however, didn't flinch. She straightened, the decoy documents clutched in her hand, and looked me dead in the eye. "You shouldn't sneak up on people, Peter. It's rude." I ignored her and looked at Michael. "Son, what are you doing?" His lips trembled. His eyes darted to Lauren, then back to me. It's not what it looks like." "Don't insult me," I said, my voice low, steady. "I watched you. From the driveway, you were ready to tear apart everything I built. For what? Pieces of paper you don't even understand." Lauren stepped forward, her heels clicking on the wood. "Don't play the righteous victim," she said coolly. "You've controlled him his whole life. The money, the house, the legacy, you hoarded it all. It's his by blood, yet you dangle it like a leash. We're just taking what should already be ours." Her audacity lit a fire in my chest, but I kept my expression calm. That same calm smile my construction crews used to whisper about when they knew someone was about to pay dearly for underestimating me. "Michael," I said softly, "look at her. Look at what she's saying. Do you honestly believe I've ever kept you from your future? Or has she convinced you that betrayal is strength?" Michael's eyes brimmed with tears. His lips parted as if to speak, but Lauren's nails dug into his arm, silencing him. "Enough of this melodrama," she hissed. "Give us the access, Peter, the accounts. The signatures, or else—" She stopped herself, but the threat hung in the air like a blade. I stepped closer, my shoes leaving wet prints on the rug. "Or else what?" I asked quietly. Her smirk returned. "Or else maybe people start learning what kind of man you really are. Maybe the press hears stories about how you made your millions. Maybe Michael finds out things even Anna never knew." For a moment I felt my pulse spike. But then I remembered. I had anticipated this too. My hand slipped subtly into my pocket, brushing against the small device there. A recorder, running since the moment I stepped inside. Every word Lauren had spoken, every admission, every venomous sentence was already captured. "Is that your plan?" I asked. "Threats, lies, using my son as a weapon against me?" She tilted her head. "Call it whatever you want. But either way, Peter, the clock is ticking. Sign it over, tonight." The room fell silent, save for the distant roll of thunder. Michael's breathing was ragged. Mine was calm. I looked her in the eye, then turned to my son. "Michael, this is the moment. You can walk away with her into a future of greed and betrayal, or you can remember who raised you, who carried you, who loved you unconditionally, even when you spit in his face." His chest heaved. His lips trembled. For a moment I thought he might choose me. But then Lauren leaned in, whispering something into his ear I couldn't hear, and his eyes hardened. Michael stepped forward, standing between me and Lauren. His voice cracked, but the words were clear. "Dad, you're going to sign everything over, tonight." And then he reached into his coat pocket. When his hand came back out, it wasn't empty. It held a gun. The storm outside cracked open the sky, lightning illuminating the horror etched into his face. My own son pointing a weapon at me. And in that moment, I understood the truth of Anna's warning. Protect him, even if he turns against you. The storm outside raged like a living thing, thunder crashing through the walls of the house as if the heavens themselves bore witness to the betrayal unfolding inside. My son, my Michael, stood before me with a gun trembling in his hand. His knuckles were white, his jaw tight, and behind the bravado in his eyes was something I recognized instantly: fear. Lauren, however, stood poised, cold, certain, a serpent coiled and ready to strike. Her lips curved in that same poisonous smirk. "Do it," she whispered sharply, her hand brushing his shoulder like a puppeteer tugging strings. "Show him you're serious." Michael swallowed hard, the gun wavering. "Dad, Just sign the papers. Please, this doesn't have to go any further. I took a step forward. The muzzle of the gun followed me. Michael, I said quietly, my voice low, steady. Do you even know what's in those papers? His brow furrowed. They give me access to what's mine, to Mom's legacy, to everything you've been keeping from me. I almost laughed, though my heart was breaking. Is that what she told you? That these documents give you control of the fortune? Son, those are decoys, meaningless, they're worthless paper. I planted them for this exact night. Lauren's expression flickered, the first crack in her perfect facade. Don't listen to him, she snapped, her voice suddenly sharp with panic. He's lying, stalling. He always manipulates. He doesn't care about you, Michael. He never has. He just wants control. Michael's breathing quickened. Sweat beaded his forehead. He was torn, caught between my steady voice and Lauren's venom. Put the gun down, I said softly, every word deliberate, each one pulling from the marrow of my soul. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the papers. I care about you, my son, the boy I raised, the boy your mother loved more than life itself. Look at me, Michael. Really look at me. His hand trembled violently now, the barrel lowering just slightly. For a heartbeat, I thought I had reached him. But then Lauren's voice cut through the air like a blade. He's weak, Michael. Don't you see? He's playing on your emotions just like always. You'll never be free until you take it. All of it. Tonight. Something inside Michael broke then. His face twisted, torn between love and rage, loyalty and betrayal. He screamed, slamming the butt of the gun against the desk, shattering a glass paperweight into shards. Stop, he roared. Both of you, stop. I can't. Lauren's eyes narrowed, fury flashing. You're pathetic, she spat. If you won't do it, I will. And before I could react, she snatched the gun from his hand. For a moment, the world slowed. Lauren, now holding the weapon, turned it toward me with chilling precision. You've had your time, Peter, she said, her voice venomous, calm. But this ends tonight. No more games. No more waiting for you to die on your own. Michael and I will build our future without you standing in the way. Michael's face went white. Lauren, what are you doing? I'm saving us, she hissed. But she didn't know one thing. The small recorder in my pocket wasn't just capturing her words. No, connected through a hidden line Eleanor had insisted on installing years ago. It was transmitting, right now, to the local authorities, to my lawyer, to my security detail, waiting just down the drive. I had anticipated greed. I had anticipated betrayal. And tonight I had anticipated violence. I met her gaze and smiled, not with fear, but with the cold certainty of a man who knows the endgame is already written. Pull the trigger if you must, I said evenly. But know this. Everything you just confessed has already left this room. The moment you lifted that gun, you lost. Her eyes widened just slightly, the first true glimpse of fear piercing her arrogance. You're bluffing, she whispered. Michael looked between us, panic flooding his face. What does he mean? Lauren, what does he mean? I didn't move. Didn't blink. Check your phone, Michael, go on. With trembling hands, he pulled it from his pocket. His face drained of color as he read the message on the screen. Forwarded. From my lawyer. The transcript of the recording. Every poisonous word Lauren had spoken. No, he whispered. No. Lauren lunged toward him, trying to grab the phone. Don't listen to him. It's fake, he's... But Michael stumbled back, horror dawning in his eyes. You planned this. You used me. Lauren's mask shattered then. Her composure vanished. She screamed feral, raising the gun. And in that exact moment, the front door burst open. Floodlights cut through the study. Heavy footsteps thundered on the floor. Drop the weapon! Now! A voice barked. Lauren spun, startled. Michael froze. And I, standing drenched in rain and betrayal, finally let myself exhale. The storm outside roared, lightning splitting the sky, yet the true storm was just beginning. Because what happened next wouldn't just decide my future. It would decide Michael's soul. The blinding beam of the tactical flashlights cut across the study, bouncing off shattered glass and gleaming off the barrel of the gun in Lauren's hand. The storm outside pounded against the windows, thunder booming like a war drum, but inside the room, the silence that followed the command was suffocating. Drop it! The officer barked again, his voice sharp, unyielding. Lauren's eyes darted wildly between me, Michael, and the armed men at the door. For the first time all night, she wasn't in control. Her mask of calm superiority had cracked, and now there was only rage and desperation. Michael raised his trembling hands. Please, please don't shoot. She'll put it down. His voice broke. Right, Lauren. Just put it down. Her knuckles whitened around the gun. She wasn't surrendering. Not yet. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, putting myself directly in her line of sight. The barrel lifted toward me. Peter! One of the officers warned, but I ignored him. Lauren, I said evenly, my voice carrying over the storm. You've already lost. Every word, every plan, every lie, it's all been recorded. You can kill me, but you can't kill the truth. They'll play it back in court. They'll hear you admit everything. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts. You think you've outsmarted me? She hissed. You think this is over? It is over, I replied, my voice hardening. And it ends with you choosing life in prison or death in disgrace. For a heartbeat, she wavered. The gun shook. And then, with a scream of pure fury, she flung it across the room. It clattered against the far wall, sliding across the floor like a snake losing its fangs. Instantly, officers surged forward. She fought, thrashing, her voice shrieking curses that echoed off the high ceilings. But they pinned her, forced her wrists into steel cuffs, and dragged her struggling toward the door. The storm of noise faded as the officers hauled Lauren out, but the silence that followed was heavier than before. Michael sank into the leather armchair, his head in his hands. His shoulders shook, not from rage, but from something deeper, something far worse. Dad, he whispered. His voice cracked, brittle as glass. What have I done? I looked at him, my heart breaking. The boy I had raised stood before me as a man undone. A man who had nearly destroyed everything, for the wrong person, the wrong reasons. You were blind, I said quietly, stepping closer. Blinded by her promises. Blinded by greed that wasn't even your own. He lifted his head, tears streaking his face. I thought she loved me. I thought we were building something together. And all this time she just wanted... His voice broke again. She just wanted you dead. The weight of his words hung between us. I sat across from him, studying his face. Michael, listen to me carefully. Tonight doesn't define the rest of your life, but the choices you make now will. You can own your part in this, or you can keep running from it. If you run, you'll become her. If you face it, you can become better. He swallowed hard, shame twisting his features. Would you even forgive me? After everything? The question struck me like a blow. Forgive? Could I? The image of him standing there with the gun pointed at my chest was still raw, burned into my mind. But beyond that was the image of a frightened boy I had raised, led astray by a woman's poison.
I don't know if forgiveness is something I can give tonight,
I said truthfully. But I know this, you're my son. And if there's even a spark of the man your mother believed you could be, I won't let you throw that away. The officers returned, rain dripping from their coats. She's in custody, one reported. Your lawyer will want to meet you first thing in the morning. And sir, he hesitated, this recording, it's ironclad. She's finished. I nodded, the weight of the night pressing down on me. Good. Make sure it gets into the right hands. When they left, silence filled the house again. The storm was beginning to pass, leaving only the echo of rain on the roof and the hollow tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Michael sat there hollow-eyed, as if the floor beneath him had given way. I placed a hand on his shoulder. He flinched at first, then let out a shuddering breath. I wanted freedom, he whispered, but I nearly killed the only man who ever truly stood by me. I squeezed his shoulder. You still have a chance to make it right. But redemption isn't given, Michael. It's earned. As the storm outside faded to a drizzle, I walked to the study window. Beyond the glass, the ground stretched into darkness, the trees swaying like shadows of the past. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like a sanctuary. It felt like a battlefield. But as I turned back to my son, broken and trembling in the chair, I knew this war wasn't over. Lauren was gone, but her poison lingered, and Michael would have to decide whether he would fight it or let it consume him. The clock struck midnight, the sound echoing through the empty halls. And I realized with a cold certainty, the hardest chapter of this story had only just begun. The storm that had raged outside finally surrendered to silence. The rain had stopped, the thunder had rolled off into the distance, and the night air hung heavy, thick with the weight of everything that had unfolded. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled once, its chime echoing through the cavernous house, marking the first minute past midnight. I sat in the study, staring at the fire that burned low in the hearth, its embers glowing like dying stars. Across from me, Michael sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, his face buried in his hands. He hadn't spoken since the officers left, since Lauren was dragged screaming into the storm. The silence between us was suffocating, not the peaceful silence of a home filled with love, but the kind that presses down, demanding to be broken. At last, Michael lifted his head. His eyes were red, swollen, the face of a man who had been stripped bare. "Dad," his voice cracked. "I don't deserve to be here." I studied him carefully, choosing my words with the precision of a surgeon. "No, you don't, not after tonight. But you are here, and what you do now will determine whether that means anything." He shook his head violently. "I pointed a gun at you. I almost—" His voice faltered. "You should hate me." I leaned back, the leather of the chair groaning softly. My gaze shifted to the mantel, where a photograph sat. Anna, my late wife, smiling in the golden light of a long-forgotten summer. She had always seen the best in people, even when they were blind to it themselves. "Your mother," I said slowly, "believed in forgiveness. She believed that even in our darkest hours people can change. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences, Michael. It only gives us the chance to start again." I stood and crossed to the antique desk in the corner. Opening the drawer, I pulled out a thick envelope, sealed and yellowed with age. I had written it months ago, long before tonight. Knowing that one day the reckoning would come, I handed it to him. "Read it." His trembling fingers broke the seal. Inside was a letter written in my hand and a single sheet of legal paper. His eyes scanned the words, confusion overtaking his grief. "To my son, Michael, if you are reading this, it means the moment has come when truth must rise above deception. I built this life not to hoard wealth, but to ensure that you and those who come after you never know the kind of poverty I was born into. But wealth is a weapon in the wrong hands. It can corrupt, it can destroy, it can turn love into transaction and family into strangers. You will inherit nothing unless you prove worthy, not to me, but to yourself. The condition is simple. Demonstrate responsibility, integrity, and honor. Fail, and everything passes to charity in your mother's name. This is my legacy. This is your test." The letter trembled in his hands. He set it aside and picked up the legal paper. It was the amendment to my will. It carried the weight of finality. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew this would happen." I nodded slowly. "Not the details. But I knew temptation would come for you, and I knew she, Lauren, wouldn't resist trying to exploit it." Michael let out a raw, guttural sound, a cross between a sob and a scream. He slammed the papers onto the desk, pacing the room like a caged animal. "All of this," he said, his voice rising. "The money, the rules, the constant judgment, it was all a test? My entire life was one long test?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Because this family carries weight. Michael, responsibility. You think wealth is freedom? It's not. It's chains. Chains that tie you to the choices you make, to the lives you affect, to the world that watches." He spun toward me, his fists clenched. "And what about love? What about me just wanting someone to believe in me?" His voice broke, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I thought she loved me, Dad. I thought she was my escape." The fire cracked, throwing sparks into the silence. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Michael, love doesn't chain you. Love doesn't isolate you. Love doesn't turn you into a weapon against your own blood. That wasn't love, it was poison." He sank to his knees, his body shaking with sobs that tore out of him like wounds finally ripping open. For the first time in years, I saw not the man who had grown cold and entitled, but the boy who had once clung to my hand in church, who had cried at scraped knees, who had whispered in awe at his mother's bedtime stories. I knelt beside him. My hand hovered over his shoulder before finally resting there. He didn't flinch. "Michael," I said quietly, "tonight you came close to losing everything. Not just the inheritance, not just this house, but yourself. You can still choose who you want to be. But understand this. Your choices tonight will echo for the rest of your life." His sobs quieted, his breathing steadied, and then softly he whispered, "I don't want to be her. I don't want to be Lauren. I want to make it right." I pulled him to his feet. "Then prove it. Not to me, to yourself." We sat once more by the dying fire. I poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing him one. His hands shook, but he held it steady enough. "Tomorrow," I said, "you will go to the police. You will tell them everything, not just about her lies, but your part in it. You will face the consequences like a man, and when you've done that, we'll talk about the future." He nodded slowly. And the inheritance? I met his gaze. The inheritance is a mirror, Michael. If you're the kind of man who deserves it, you won't need it. If you're not, it will destroy you. That's what you need to understand. The fire burned lower, the embers fading. For the first time in years, I felt something between us that had been missing. Not trust. Not yet, but the faint outline of it. A fragile thread stretched thin but unbroken. As the clock struck 1, I rose. Get some rest. Tomorrow begins your real test. Michael stood hesitant, then did something he hadn't done since he was a boy. He wrapped his arms around me. For a moment I stood frozen. Then slowly I embraced him back. It was not forgiveness, but it was the beginning of something that might one day earn it. Later, alone in the study, I sat before the dying fire and opened another drawer. Inside was a second envelope, sealed and untouched. Its label read, "If Michael fails." I stared at it for a long time, the weight of my legacy pressing down like a stone. The truth was simple. Tomorrow would reveal everything. Whether my son would rise from the ashes of betrayal, or whether this letter, and the $30 million fortune attached to it, would go elsewhere. I placed it back into the drawer, locked it, and poured myself another drink. As the last embers flickered out, I whispered into the silence, "Anna." Guide him, because if he fails tomorrow, it will be the end of everything. The clock tolled once more, and the night swallowed the sound whole.